So let's get started. Lesson 2, Heraclitus and the Logos, okay? So let's have a brief word about this gentleman named Heraclitus. Heraclitus existed around or before 500 BC. Now, just as a way to reminder, Christ, his birth was anywhere from, depending on how you date it, from 4 BC to 1 BC. And then the death of Jesus was anywhere from 30 to 33 BC. As we look at Heraclitus, he existed about 500 years before the incarnation of Jesus. Okay, so before Jesus was laid in a manger, about 500 years before was Heraclitus. He's best known for his short and pithy sayings that condensed many ideas into a few words. Though he's not widely known, the reason why we're studying him, even though he's not widely known, so if you ask people about philosophy, they'll automatically say what? Plato, Socrates, and who? Aristotle. We'll hear those three, right? The big three. And you will not necessarily hear, oh yeah, philosophy, Heraclitus. Well, duh. No, we don't hear about Heraclitus. The reason why he's important is he's an influencer who helped shape thinkers such as Plato and the Stoics. So he was a precursor in helping shape ideology that came after him. That's the reason why we're studying him. Also, he talks about the Logos, and that's going to be a key player. We're going to get to that in a couple lessons down the road, okay? So, if anything, I want you to maybe put a star on this sheet or mark it, and then put on there, say, reference this sheet when we get to the Gospel of John chapter 1, okay? So, we want to reference this sheet when we get to John chapter 1, okay? So, let's unpack Heraclitus very briefly. Heraclitus talks a lot about flux. Okay? Now, what he's famous for is the saying, and I'm going to give you the general meaning of the saying, and then we'll be specific in exactly what he said. The general idea of this saying is this: you cannot step twice into the same river. Okay? So, it's the same river, but it's what? Different. That makes sense? So it's not the same, even like within 2 minutes, it's a different river, but yet it's the same. It's the difference with the sameness. So to be specific, he said, upon those who step into the same river flows other and yet other waters. That's technically what he said. Okay? So let's unpack this a little bit more. That is to say, it is the same river yet different. He also once said this: the path traced by a pen is straight and crooked. You ever try to draw a line? If you're like me, I'm always impressed with the individuals who have a steady hand. Those who can draw with calligraphy, those who can paint, those who tattoo, so forth. They have a steady hand. I'm impressed by that. When I try to draw a straight line, it's going to be crooked, almost like a heartbeat, right? And so the line itself, if you look at a line, it's a line. It's going in one direction, but it's always different. It's always kind of shaky, right? Unless you are a professional artist per se. All right. So the path traced by a pen is straight and crooked at the same time. One line, but many crookedness to it. Or seawater is very pure and very impure, drinkable and healthy for fish, but undrinkable and destructive to men. So to summarize, Heraclitus is addressing the one and the many. Okay? He's essentially saying that the world is full of changes, flowing water, but then he says it's not in chaos. Okay, so this is the key. He looks at the world and he says the world is what? Very chaotic, right? You can never step in the same river. It's always different. You look at the line, it's always changing. There's always ups and downs, a movement to it. Yet it's the same river, it's the same line. In other words, he looks at the world, he says the world is full of changes. And we can see this ourselves, right? We see this with our weather patterns, right? Some days, especially here in North Dakota, it's like, my goodness, this spring, it's like, is it ever going to warm up? And then all of a sudden it warms up and it's like 100 degrees out. It's like, oh my goodness, not that warm, please, right? And the weather's changing. The patterns of seasons change. Look at our life. We have people who die, people who live, changes in downtown. Things are changing all the time. and yet it's still North Dakota, right? Things still stay the same. So, the world is full of changes, flux, flowing water, but Heraclitus says not chaos. The changes in the world are structured by what he would call a world order, the same river. Okay, now, here's my illustration. So, as I've contemplated Heraclitus, here's my illustration to make sense of what he's saying. Okay? So, a lot of this I'm pulling from other philosophy books and I'm plagiarizing, just for full disclosure. I'm pulling different thoughts, putting it on paper, condensing it, making it easy for us to understand. This thought here, let's see how I do on this. This is original with me here. We'll see how this sounds. Contemporary illustration to understand is that no two cars in a city are the same. Right? So if you look at a city like Minot, some drive fast, some drive slow, some are big and some are small, some are moving and some are parked, some are going north and others are going south. Some are going uphill and some are going downhill. The majority of the cars, if we really look at the cars in Minot, the majority of the cars in Minot are in opposition. Okay? They really are in opposition. It's actually, if you really pause and think, well, it's kind of a miracle, right? Especially on Broadway on a Friday night. My goodness, I am definitely going to be old. I think I drove on Broadway on a Friday night and my blood pressure rate, I'm just like, don't do that again. I'll take the back streets. It's just going to be too much of an old man, okay? But anyway, my point is you look at cars, no two cars are the same. Ever. In my mind. Ever. They're never the same. Okay, so you would think if you look at the hundreds and thousands of cars here in Minot, and no two are the same, you would think chaos, bloodshed, smacking of cars blowing up, gasoline flowing everywhere, bloodshed and chaos, right? And yet, there's a rhythm to it. If you were to get up in a helicopter and you look down, it would almost be poetic, right? From up top, you would see it would be almost like a poetic system of things, how they work and they move. And you've seen that before, where they actually take traffic and they fast forward at night with lights, and it's kind of beautiful. In fact, when we were in Southern California, we would go up on the side of the Inland Valley. We'd watch the cars. It was really quite beautiful at night. So it's like, what's going on? So there is no chaos between these opposites, but a structured order, right? So you're like, okay, there's chaos, but yet these cars are not crashing in opposition. They're not blowing up. There's not bloodshed and chaos and disorder. There's order. Okay? That makes sense? This is what Heraclitus is observing. So, this leads us to the Logos. Now, some individuals will say Logos. I say Logos. The only reason I say Logos is because I was taught to pronounce the omicron as an os, on like omelet. So that's the way I was taught to read Greek. Was os, log. I say Logos, and that's just from my training. So there's different ways of pronouncing the Greek language by different professors. But the way I say it is Logos, and that's what that word right there looks like, Logos. The word above in the heading is the term Logos. Now this word, when we get to this, when we tie this all together, it means structure, it means pattern, it means logic. It can also mean, as a word, a message, a rationale, a thought. We can translate that word Logos as word, right? Just simply word, okay? Now here's the key. We do not have a precise equivalent in the English language. So if you say, hey, this word Logos, how do we translate it into English? We don't have a precise word in the English language that can capture all that the word Logos has used. So I think, in my humble opinion, I do know, like in the Gospel of John, the word Logos is used. In the beginning was the Logos, right? In the beginning was the Word. I'm almost, okay, no, I'm not a linguist by any means, and not a talented translator, but I'm almost inclined, that would have been one where I probably would have left as what? Logos. Just instead of translating it as word, just leaving it as in the beginning was the Logos, and just print that and let people be confused, and then forces you to explain it. But that's just my 2 cents. So, what does the Logos have to do with Heraclitus? Heraclitus taught that there is a Logos, and that all things came into being through the Logos. That is to say, the Logos is the central feature of the cosmos. The thing that maintains world order. It's the thing that keeps traffic moving rightly, if you will. And so he goes on to say, if one looks hard enough at the world, one must conclude that the Logos is not accidental, but it is what is reasonable and right. And so according to Heraclitus, the Logos is the thought which steers all things. That's huge. That's directly from Heraclitus. It's the thought. The Logos is the thought which steers all things. The Logos is that which governs the universe. So if you were to look at all these cars, and let's just say you came from Mars, and you came to live on Earth, and you've never seen a car, never seen streets before, and you look at all that chaos. At first you would say, what a mess, especially riding in the car of somebody. You may think to yourself, this is just chaos. You stop and go and left and right, especially somebody who drives fast. Turn in and zip it on. It's worse than a bigger city. You would think this is absolute, total chaos. But then if they take you and you put you on top of a hill and you watch at night, watch all these lights, you say, oh my goodness, there's order. But then you would drive saying, okay, what controls this chaos? What controls it? You see, there has to be something there. There has to be something there that controls the chaos. Okay? And back to Heraclitus, he says that thing that controls the chaos is the Logos. And he says the Logos is the thing that maintains the world order. And he goes as far as to say the Logos is that everything came into being through the Logos. Okay? And the Logos steers all things. Keeps that chaos in a oneness. Right? Make sense? All right. So, recognizing the Logos. Heraclitus stated that all people encounter the Logos but may not realize it. They do not recognize the Logos because they become immersed in their own little worlds, distorted by their own interests, their own fears and anxieties. They only see the water they are in now. Perhaps you could think of that illustration with the car. They only see their, perspective of the world through the passenger seat of the car, or driving. So they're in that car, and what they see is they only see the darting in and out, moving forward, stopping, left, right, up and down, right? They only see that. And he says that to be wise, though, is to grasp and understand the nature and the structure of the world via what? The Logos. Here's straight from him. To understand the thought which steers all things through all things. So his key is, wisdom is found when a person begins to perceive and understand the thought, or we'd say the Logos, that steers all things and makes all things, perhaps, say it that way. Does that make sense? So it's to get out of your car, walk up on the hill, look down and say, oh, I see a pattern, or I see that these cars will all stop and they back up and then these move. And then here they go faster and here they go slower. And to see how they work together and the chaos is controlled by something. And to recognize that there's a thing there governing the chaos. So he says, fools, though, are like sleepers who live in a dream. I'm paraphrasing Heraclitus here. Fools are like sleepers who live in a dream, not seeing or being aware of the rational pattern of things. That make sense? Okay. Why does this matter? Does the Logos govern people? Appealing to the Logos, Heraclitus stated, it is not good for men to get all that they wish. It is hard to fight against impulse, for what it wants it buys at the expense of the soul. In other words, what he's saying is, it's not good for mankind to get all they wish because they would overstep the bounds set by the Logos. So Heraclitus was very aware of this. He asserted that there needed to be limits on desires. Mankind should speak and think and act in ways that are in harmony with the Logos. He talked about moderation and balance. Through moderation and balance, mankind can participate in the divine wisdom of the Logos. Now, I think I'm understanding this correctly, he didn't necessarily want to call the Logos Zeus, but he alluded to the Logos with the idea of thunder and lightning, and alluding to that there's almost a divine quality to the Logos that was divine in nature. But he didn't come right out and say the Logos was Zeus. Okay? So how do we understand the Logos? There's a divine kind of aspect to it. It's not necessarily mortal human. It's something that's above us, something that's bigger than us, is the way that he understood it. Again, like I said, when I'm reading that down, they said he doesn't necessarily call it Zeus, but it kind of seems like he wants to, but he doesn't go that far. In other words, the Logos is a divineness, of a divinity, of a godlike thing. Okay? So the Logos is bigger than human wisdom, and so being wise is recognizing it and aligning oneself with it with moderation and balance to participate and not act contrary or in opposition to the Logos. That was wisdom. All right. Got you hooked. Next week, Protagoras, real quick. Protagoras says, as we dip our toe into Protagoras says, hey, Heraclitus would say the center of the cosmos that has divine order and creates all things and puts limitations on things. The thing that holds it all together is what? The Logos. Protagoras says what? The eye of man is the measure of all things. Protagoras says, no, not really the Logos, it's you. You, the individual. What you perceive is what's right. Ooh. It may not be true for you, but it's true for me. That's Protagoras, right? Protagoras, 2026, right? It's the same spirit Protagoras that exists.